Hello all, welcome back to Uncommon Geeks. My name is Vasanth. I hope you all doing well. So in today's mock interview with me, I have Srijan. So this is going to be around 30 minutes of video where I'll be interviewing Srijan with respect to front-end technologies. I'll be asking you basics of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React, and maybe last 5 to 10 minutes we'll also discuss about one DSA problem. So it's going to be a good session. So please watch the video till the end. We'll start the video by Srijan's introduction. Srijan, over to you. Can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, so as you already have mentioned, my name is Srijan. I am in my final year of my engineering in the stream of computer science, obviously, and I am pursuing it from a college based out of Kolkata. And coming to my experiences and all, so I've been into working with web technology since for 2 years, and I've had three past internship experiences as well. And right now I'm working as a full stack intern in a startup named Sprinto. Thank
Wonderful.
you. That's all from my side.
Wonderful, Sujan. See, whenever I interview a fresher, I ask this question, very common question. A lot of people actually struggle a lot to find an internship. I don't know your college. Maybe you might be from premium or you may not be from premium college. There are a lot of people who are actually not from a premium college. They find it very hard to find an internship, Sujan. So, but you said you already have done already two internship and this is a third internship by the time when you are in final year. Can you just help my audience probably what are the right means to get into internships?
So there is no rule of thumb as such, but I've been focusing on my skills and trying to get as deeper knowledge as possible in those skills. And for the first 6 to 7 months, I solely focused on the practical knowledge, like building projects, then doing finding like internships and all. And then when I got the foundation got strong, then I tried to get more deep into the topics like the code JavaScript concepts and all. So I guess yeah. So if someone does that, I guess he or she can probably land a internship or a job.
Wonderful. So basically, you say don't just apply. First, have a strong fundamental knowledge. Once you have acquired the knowledge, then look out for internship. I only have just one last question before we start the interview. Like, do you refer you like you? What are the right means to get internship? Is it like using Internshala sites like Internshala, or using LinkedIn? What are the right sources, Rajan, you recommend?
Okay. So I have tried my hands on many platforms. So like LinkedIn, the Angel List, which is now known as Well Found, and Qubit also, which is a new platform. But yeah, actually I landed my recent internship from Qubit only,
Q
and
better.
I also
Can you
Qubit,
spell it?
yeah.
Spell it,
C
Rajan.
U yeah, CUVETTE. Qubit.
Oh,
Qubit.tech is the domain. Yeah.
wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, so yeah, like how Sujan has landed the internship, maybe you guys can also go. I don't know any of the website he said. It's no recommendation from my side, but just if somebody can get an internship, all my followers also get an internship if you're really having caliber. So please go ahead and check out whatever Sujan is saying. Sujan, let us start with the interview. Okay, this is how I generally start with very extreme basics of the JavaScript. Maybe my audience might have also seen in the other interviews of mine. So, can you please tell me what are promises in JavaScript, Sujan?
Okay, so promises are basically the objects which lets us facilitate the asynchronous tasks in JavaScript. So if I have to explain like what promises do. So if there is a task that's not gonna happen synchronously, like an API call or something, which but it will take some time to execute, then we can use a promise to execute that task asynchronously. And when we use a promise, then that task goes into the micro task queue, and once it gets resolved or rejected, it depends what happens, then we get back the response, and we can get the response by using dot then to if it is resolved, or dot catch if it is rejected or there is an error.
Got it. So, promise is basically used whenever we have to perform certain things asynchronously. Network call is one
Yeah,
good example, correct?
yeah,
So,
yeah.
there is another function called promise.all. Have you heard about promise.all?
Yeah, I've heard.
Please tell me what is promise.all?
Okay, so promise dot all basically helps us when we want to perform two, three asynchronous tasks concurrently. Like if there are, so first, let's suppose there are three API calls and we want to execute them asynchronously and concurrently. So we can just pass the array of promises, and it basically returns us with the response in an array as well. But if one of them fails, then whole the promise dot all gets rejected.
Correct.
Yeah.
So can you give me one right use case, Rajan, with your internship experience? When do you use a promise.all?
Okay. Like if there is an like there is an array of IDs, I guess, and we want to query for all those IDs, and like I've seen many people do it using async await, but that doesn't happen concurrently
Hmm.
actually. So it happens when one ends and the other starts. So instead of that, we can do a promise.all. Like we can first get the array of promises. We can use the promise.all object to resolve or reject them. And yeah, so these are some use cases. So if you want to like get data for an array of IDs, query using that, we can use promise.all. And I've used that in my internship as well.
Wonderful, wonderful, Sujan. Good that you know it in depth. Let us talk a little bit about the concurrency that you're talking multiple times. Okay. So whenever you pass multiple promises to promise.all, after that, how the execution will happen? Can you talk more on that, Sujan?
Yeah, so basically, if there are three promises, and first, what will happen is three of the promises will be matlab, the request will be sent,
Hmm.
and well, like concurrently for the first request for the first promise will be sent if it is an API call. The second for the second also it will be sent, and for the third also it will be sent. But whenever what happens is whenever like one of the promise or all the promises get resolved, it basically gets accumulated in an array of responses and it gets returned. So the only difference between concurrency and like happening sequentially is like concurrently it actually like throws the requests like one after the other, and it gets executed like parallelly. But there is a bit of difference between parallel and concurrency. But yeah.
Yeah, I want you to talk more on that, Sujan. Can you talk? What is the
Okay.
difference between concurrency and parallel?
Okay, so like parallelly, suppose like there are three promises, and it's not like three of them are sent parallelly, like at the same time, at the same point of time. But concurrency, it's the first one is sent, the second one is sent, and then the third one is sent, and
Correct.
then the execution happens parallelly.
Hmm.
Then the thing goes parallelly, and once one of them or two of them gets resolved, it gets accumulated in the array of responses. And
Yeah.
parallelly is when three of them are sent like at the same point of time. That's
Yeah.
not what happens actually.
Got it. Why parallel is not possible, Sujan?
Okay, uh, I don't have too much depth on that, but I guess like it's like not possible to like push three of them in the micro task queue at the same point of time. That's
Got
why
it.
like
Got it, Sujan.
yeah.
No, why parallel cannot execute is because JavaScript is single thread. No process can happen on that node parallelly. Correct. At a
Okay,
time,
yeah,
only one process can be processed. Okay.
okay, yeah.
So yeah, let us talk a little bit about the event loops, Rajan. As we are very close to that, only we are discussing. Talk
Mhm.
more about event loop. Why event loop is necessary? What is event loop?
Okay, so is event loop basically gives us the power to do the asynchronous tasks, and also basically when we use a set timeout and all, so it goes to the macro task queue. And first what happens is first the call the task of the main thread gets executed, and when
Correct.
like the event loop actually checks key if the main thread is empty, and once it's empty it basically pushes the tasks from the micro task queue or macro task queue. First the micro task queue happens, then the macro task queue, and it gets executed. So the event loop basically checks key if the main thread is empty, and if it's empty then it basically pushes it to the main thread, and the execution and the console logging all happens.
Sure. So then let us get into little more details. So
Okay,
let's say there are one statement that is console.log. There is
okay,
second statement which is set timeout. Third statement, let us again consider console.log. Okay.
okay,
With the help of event loop, can you explain me how these three statements will be executed? Let's say set timeout is for 3 seconds. Okay. Yeah.
okay, okay. So first, like JavaScript executes synchronously. So first it will, when encounter the first console log, it will get logged. Then what it will see that there is a set timeout, which is a web API, and it is an asynchronous task. So it will be pushed the macro task queue.
So
Okay.
will it be first moved into the main queue or not? Or will it be directly taken into the web API or the another queue that you
Uh,
mentioned?
yes, it will be directly first pushed to the macro task queue, not in the like the main thread.
Hmm.
It will push to the macro task queue,
Hmm.
and like then the second console log, matlab the third, but the second in the main thread will happen.
Hmm.
And then after in the when the set timeout expires, like the time that we have already passed, like 3 seconds as you mentioned, when it will be passed, then what it will happen is the event loop will like after 3 seconds it will check that if the main thread is empty now, and if it is empty, then the console log will push to the main thread, and then it will happen and it will get logged. I guess
Hmm.
like pretty much conversation.
Correct. Nothing wrong, Srijan, but even more clarity can be added to this. Okay, I
Okay,
recommend reading that official log, official documentation
okay,
at
okay.
developer.mozilla.org. Now let's get to the same. Let's go back to the example that we're discussing with promise.all. So
Mm.
promise.all, let's say you're passing three promises, they execute concurrently, and the array of response comes back. Correct.
Mm.
So with the event loop concept, where do you think the waiting is happening? Because three promises happening concurrently, correct? Like after they start triggering, it's parallel. Like you said, once only triggering is concurrent, then they execute parallelly. So where is the wait happening to accumulate all the result and then process it?
You mean like the act when the API is being called and we have to wait for the response to come back?
Not
That
that
wait.
also, that is fine. But actually promise.all should return array of promises, like
Yeah,
all the promises that
yeah.
has returned, correct? So now there has to be a process that is waiting for all these promises to resolve, club it into one array and send as a response. Let's get to the positive flow where all promises are resolved. Okay.
Okay,
So in
okay,
that case, somewhere the wait has to happen to accumulate all the promises. Do you know which layer this accumulation happens?
okay. I get your question. So this this thing basically happens uh in the main thread, I guess. Like I am not fully sure, I will be honest, but I guess that accumulation of the results, pushing it into the array and returning it, happens in the main thread and not the other.
Sure. Please read little more. Okay, and on
Okay, okay,
this particular topics. Now
yeah,
let's start with some basics of React as Srijan. Okay,
okay.
tell me one reason why do you think React is faster than plain HTML and vanilla JavaScript?
So, React actually has a concept of virtual DOM, which is an in-memory representation of the actual DOM. That
Correct.
that's a tree. Yeah. So basically, what happens is, like using the virtual DOM, a diffing process goes on under the hood in React. So when we have changed something, it basically does the diffing. There are two snapshots of the DOM, the previous one and the current one. The diffing algorithm happens, which is known as reconciliation, and when it sees that there are like the a change in the HTML, and it basically what it does is it then actually matlab, interacts with the actual DOM, and not from the first times, because interacting the real DOM is a bit expensive.
With non-stop. Obviously, there is a lot of research that has gone into making this video. So please like the video and subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon if you're not already done so. And add a comment whatever you felt so far. The reason for that, I always say I have a only motto of I want to help the candidate to clear their interview. So if more likes, more comments, video becomes visible for a lot. Whenever it is visible for a lot, there is a high chance I get more subscribers and the followers. Definitely, there is a high chance I would be able to reach my cause very soon. Okay, so please like and comment about the video before watching the further. Okay, now.
So I
So,
guess that makes React a faster option.
got it.
Yeah.
Sure. So Srijan, do you see is there any flow where React might be slower than plain HTML and JavaScript?
uh, React might be slower. So like the virtual DOM is actually tree, and when a parent re-renders, the child's all the children also gets re-rendered. So there might be some cases when like there are unnecessary re-renders happening under
Hmm.
the hood, which we can optimize, but out of the box there are many unnecessary re-renders that may happen. So in that cases, it might become slow as a slower option of the
So
two.
whenever the program is not written properly, is a problem across everything. I mean that is not an edge case. Like even HTML says also somebody can write a program to run unnecessarily. Let's stick to ideal scenario where programs are written quite well. Okay. Do you see a scenario where plain HTML and vanilla JavaScript might work faster compared to React?
Mm. So
Or you can also
uh,
agree that the React plain HTML JavaScript will be never faster than React. What is your take?
okay, so no, I know that in some cases, plain vanilla JavaScript comes out faster of the two.
Hmm.
But like the exact why, when, and why it happens is
Gotcha.
So if there is an ideal case, then it it might be uh, like when there is not much interaction with DOM, so their vanilla JavaScript can actually come out faster.
Okay. Sure, Sujan. You can read little more. See, these are all the not
Okay.
questions that generally asked by everyone. So, as you know, most interviews they just stick to the some basics. I generally do to extreme basics, so I'm asking. But it's good to know, okay? Because when you think one
Yeah.
is superior over another, not you, everybody thinks only people are using React. So we should know where probably superiority is not up to the mark. Okay, no problem. Now
Yeah.
let's get into
No.
some another other concepts of React. Okay, can you please tell me what are higher order components, Srujan, in React?
So higher order component is a component that takes in a component as a parameter and returns an updated component. So it's like higher order functions only, but in React it is referred in terms of component. Like it takes a component as a parameter and returns an updated component.
Got it.
That is basically an higher order component. Yeah.
Correct. So give me one example, Srijan. I don't expect you to give a practical example. If you know from some internship, you can tell. But otherwise, also try to give me one example, not from built-in function, some example that you think right use case for higher order component.
Yeah, so like if there is a page and like I'm going solely UI
Sure.
from the UI perspective, and we want to attach a sidebar
Hmm.
to all of it and some custom logic. So we can use a higher order component like with sidebar, and we can dump all our logic regarding the sidebar in the higher order component, and we can return the updated component like from that HOC.
Got decision. So is it something where you can also use a normal component and put some conditions and render the sidebar components?
Yeah, like the reusability of the logic can be done in many ways, but HOC is one thing that can come in handy in this case.
Sure, Sujan. The reason why I asked this is one of my common question. Why I ask is, see, any optimal technique that you would use, um, that should give you capability which otherwise you are not getting. Correct? Because every optimal technique has its own problems. Using use memo, use callback, they have their own disadvantages also. So whenever you want to use them, you have to be sure they really add advantage. Correct? Use case, what you're saying is correct. It's not wrong. There could be even more optimal use cases for higher order component. Okay? Yeah, sure. So now let us talk a little bit about the hooks, Srijan. Okay? Can you please tell me why hooks are necessary in React functional components?
Yeah, so hooks gives us the power like of what class components had like with states. It before hooks the function components were stateless components. So hooks has given the power of using states inside functional components. So some basic like hooks are we use state to like populate the state of the component, local state of the component. Also, there are other hooks like use effect to trigger side effects from re-renders and all.
Got it. Sure. So hooks basically give one of the capability that you mentioned is functional components are stateless. So hooks
State.
have made functional components stateful. Correct, Sujan?
Yeah. Yeah.
Any other capability that hooks have given to functional component?
Yeah, like nowadays we can use custom hooks to to like facilitate the reusability of any logic. Like instead of HOCs, we can all there will be some use cases we can go with use custom hooks also.
Got
Like
it.
yeah.
Sure. Please elaborate. Like when do you think is the right scenario to use a custom hook?
So personally, what I have used in each of the components, we do a lot of API calls. So
Correct.
we can make our own custom hook, like use API call, and we can in the hook custom hook itself, we can like have three states like loading, error, or data has been returned, and we can use that like to we can use that hook in the component to manage all our API calls, and using that hook also we can get three states of the API call. It can be like the error, the loading, or if the data has been passed. So it makes much more intuitive to the
Got it.
programmer to use
Got
the
it.
hook. Yeah.
Sure. What example you're giving, Sajjan, is absolutely right. Okay, so my question more towards is like, can you tell me one generic flow? Like for example, when do you use a function? When you have a meaningful logic that can be clubbed together, we would use a function, correct? So when do you use a custom hook?
Yeah, to when we need a reusability of logic, like when we want to reuse logic, then we'll use a custom hook.
So then in that case, you can use utility functions also. Correct? Just the reusability is required.
हाँ मतलब in the custom hook we will need some state like in util function we like in a normal util function we can't have state in the custom hook we can have states in it as well. So in that cases, yeah, you are right, in that cases we'll use custom hook, like when the custom hook will have states and all in it.
Got it. So to summarize this region, oh, whenever there's a requirement where you want a reusability of the logic first, then you also need React capabilities, reusability of a logic
Yeah,
plus the reusability of React capabilities. You would go with the
yeah,
hooks. Am I right, Srijan?
yeah, absolutely, yeah,
Okay,
that's what I meant.
sure, Srijan. Whatever you're saying is right. So my question was like, let's come back to the first question where you were referring to hooks gave a capability of state management to functional component, and my add-on question was anything else that it would give. Custom hooks is fine. Anything else you think the hooks have given to functional component?
Like other than making it stateful, some other things like I guess it makes it much more intuitive,
Sure,
to the programmer, because component did mount and all was a bit hectic to the programmer. So it's
correct,
one small advantage that hooks provide.
correct.
Yeah,
That's
I
what.
guess. Yeah,
That's it. So another thing, as you already mentioned, you have to tell one is the state management, which is right. So second one is the life cycle management, correct? Life cycle management is also given to functional component. Otherwise, it was not there. Life cycle methods, correct? So now hooks have
yeah,
given a
yeah,
life
true.
cycle methods to the functional component, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
true.
So I'll ask you maybe one last question, then we'll go to a small DSF as well. See, in the class component, not sure whether you worked or not. Maybe at least you might have read about the class components, correct? So in class component has a method called render, correct? So render, inside the render, you would write all the code that gets rendered. Have you see?
Yeah.
Have you at least studied it, Sajan? If not worked,
Mm, yeah, like I have a bit of knowledge regarding that, and I have touched it in legacy code of an internship, but it was like 1 year back.
got it. Yeah, sure, no worries. See, my question is this. Basically, there is a functional component. You are starting from your app.js till any component that you would write. Everywhere there are functions, and the functions are returning something, a component, correct? Where is the mechanism actually to render that particular code that is written? Have you ever given a thought? Where is the rendering capability happening?
In React.
I know, but
Uh,
from your code structure, whenever
no,
the
no,
class,
it was actually a question. So you are asking, matlab, it is a query to the question. So you are asking ki when the actual rendering process happens in React.
nay.
Is that
My question
okay?
is, see, every function is returning something.
Yeah.
Okay, let's say a project full of functional component. Okay, so every function is returning some or the other component. So you see, returning something from a function will not render anything on the screen directly. Okay,
Mm,
so
true.
even re-rendering whatever you are talking is not at a component level; it is at a much higher level. Okay, every component is returning something. So there has to be some mechanism to render it on the screen. Okay, from you the code, whatever the code that you have written, do you know where is that exact code or exact piece that is responsible for rendering the component that are returned?
I guess the React DOM.render method, which actually does that stuff of rendering and interacting with the DOM. There is a thing called Babel, which actually transpiles JSX code to actual the code that the browser will understand, and then the rendering goes on.
Okay, it's not wrong, but it can be more clear. Okay, Sajan, please read a bit about this as well. Okay, so can you just open JS Fiddle? If you want, I can share the link and you can present your screen.
I, I will share the screen too. Give me a second.
Yes, yes, yes. Please share. Okay.
Uh, yeah. Is it visible?
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let us start with some small snippet. With my experience of talking to you, mostly you will answer it right. But let's like let audience also get to know this. Okay. So give me a moment. Okay. I'm sharing a snippet with you in the chat. Please copy
Okay.
the snippet and paste in the JavaScript side. Okay.
Okay. Uh,
I think it will be in the top, the Zoom, whatever the sharing you did, right?
ah, yeah, yeah, I got it. Uh,
Sure, sure.
yeah,
Yeah. Please paste. Yeah. Can you zoom in a bit, Sujan?
yeah, sure. Is it visible?
Maybe more too. Yeah. Maybe one more. Maybe one more
Okay,
plus. Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Please try to guess the output.
Okay, the we are using a var. It is a function expression.
Yeah.
So when we will this will actually be consoled. World is beautiful,
Yeah.
and next time when it will like encounter this thing, so it will throw an error that say name is not a function
Hmm.
because it gets hoisted as undefined as it is a we are using var keyword here.
Correct. Absolutely right. Okay. So this is the last question that I'm asking you, Srijan. Okay. You
Okay,
don't have to write a code to this. Just copy whatever I sent in the chart and replace the existing content. We'll discuss your approach towards this DSA problem. Okay.
okay, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe you can, I mean, expand the JavaScript layer so that
Hmm.
that is in the center kind of. Yes. And maybe now we can zoom in two more times. It's even more clearly visible.
Is it or should I zoom more? Is
Yeah.
it
One more zoom you do, please.
okay? Okay.
Yeah. Now, please read the question. Okay. And tell me what have you understood about the question. Then we can talk about the approach.
Okay. I'm just reading it. Uh,
Yes.
okay. Hmm. Okay. So there will be an what I've understood is so there is an array of inputs and we have to find the common prefix like uh, the number of letters that are actually similar uh, when we are starting with the traversing of the string. So in this case, FL is a common prefix in all three of these.
Correct.
Like likely in this case actually since we have a string named other which actually does not the prefix does not match with the these three, so we are returning empty string in this case.
Mm.
So mm, coming to the solution, what we can do is so we just once. Okay, so we can actually take a like we can actually take one of those strings. Well, it will be better to take the largest string or the smallest string in this case,
Mm. Mm.
and we will use the length and traverse it from 0 to that length.
Mm.
And what we will do is we will have the I, which will be the index, and we'll check if it is matching for all the four, like or all the strings that has been in the array. So in this case, if it is test here, so we will traverse from 0 to the last, which will be 0 to 4, and we'll check key if the 0th index character is same for all this, and if it is same, then we will go to the next, and if it is not, then what we will do is we will return a empty string in
Okay.
that case.
Okay. So yeah, just I'll reiterate whatever you said, Srijan. So what you're saying is like first you identify a string that is of the shortest length. Then you will run the loop till the shortest length, and you constantly check each word in every iteration to see whether the all the characters are in that particular word, all the words are same or not. Correct?
Similar, yeah, yeah.
Okay. So let's come to the complexity part, Sujan. What is the complexity here?
So
Time complexity. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. for taking out the smallest string, we will have O of n complexity, big O
Mm,
of n.
mm,
And then also like the next part when we are actually taking out the common prefix, also like the general number of same operations, it will also be big O of n in that case, because when we are at the zeroth index, we are just checking key. Okay, just give me a in that case it will be O of n square actually, because we'll also have to check that the zeroth index for all the elements are same.
mm. Correct. So big
Yeah,
of n square plus n. So obviously it'll be gonna be n square. Correct, Srijan? Yeah,
yeah.
sure. You can stop sharing, Srijan. Okay.
Okay, okay.
So fine, Srijan. Like pretty much I'm done. So let us. We have almost 5 more minutes. Let's use it for my feedback session. Okay. But before I
Okay.
share my feedback towards your overall interview, you have any questions for me, Srijan? Just for this interview.
mm, uh, for this interview, like what do you think one area like I can be better, which you will
Sure.
already tell in your feedback, but still I'm asking.
Same, sure, Srijan. See, one thing that I like, Srijan, let's start with the positive points that with my discussion of around 25 minutes, what I feel very positive about you is one is the communication skills, very good communication skills. There's a little bit of a scope for improvement, but like finally, we are not somebody like a politician who talk all the time, correct? As long as we are able
Yeah,
to articulate what we know, that is the communication that we look for, that you have. Fluency can be improved a bit, but communication as a skill is good. Second thing is the technical knowledge to a depth that you have learned. I often interview a lot of experienced people with 5 6 years experience. They wouldn't know whether promise.all is a parallel execution or a concurrent execution. Okay. On that note, you really have understood the concept to a very in-depth level. So I say this to audience also who are watching this video. Please understand it at least to a level that Sajan has understood, because that will give you the mastery about the overall web development. Okay. And even coming to the React concepts as region, there also have good knowledge. So whenever I ask you what capability that hook use, or probably when is the right scenario to build a custom hook, those are something that comes only if you have built something. If you can study a lot of things, how to build a custom hook and what are hooks, etc., but you wouldn't get to know a right scenario for hook unless you have worked on it. Okay. So which, see, it is, we don't have to judge you whether by looking at your internship certificate have you done internship or not. By asking questions only we'll get to know what sort of work you have done. On that note, these are all the very good points, Sujat. Okay. And coming to the second part where little bit of a things to improve is what I say is, so you know concepts to a very decent depth, but there is still some scope, like I mentioned in few scenarios, correct, where you can dig further deep and understand it. So why? Because JavaScript is, as you know, it's not a straightforward language. Even for a very experienced person, people get confused sometimes why this is happening, etc. Correct. You can spend little more time understanding it. Point number one, and point number two is a DSA problem. I know we had a little bit of a time crunch. Still, don't attempt the question directly, like you started telling the approach straight away, right? So you should always take some time, synthesize the overall whatever the problem that is you're doing, and then you have to tell what is the solution. Okay. As you also understood, like you thought it is n, but it's n square. There will be some
yeah,
optimal approaches, like even if you spend 5 minutes now, you may find some approach with n. Correct.
yeah.
So
True.
take some time to understand and then attempt, especially the DSA. Because once you said one approach and started writing, so you are halfway already out of the interview. Because when there is an N solution, N approach is possible for an easy problem, you're writing N square approach, is mostly that is done. Correct. So be very cautious whenever you are telling an approach, especially in the DSA. But web development region, I liked overall whatever your skill sets are. Like if I am in a hiring panel, that I would definitely select you. Okay. Sure.
Thanks,
Eh,
Vasanth, for your feedback.
yes. Any other questions, Rajan?
uh
Just
no
for the
like
interview. Yeah. From the interview.
uh,
Maybe. Yeah.
uh as of it, like I got your points, and what are the things I can probably work on to make it better.
Yes.
uh I guess, yeah.
Sure. Sure, Rajan. Yeah, then nice talking to Sujin. But audience, whoever have watched, I think this was a very meaningful mock interview that I have taken. There are very few mock interviews that I have taken, but luckily I've got very competitive interview also whenever I'm taking the interview. So I think you also practice all the questions and whatever the way Sujin has answered. So read more about all these questions. That will definitely make you fundamentally strong. Thank you so much for watching. Catch you in next video.